All right, guys, so this is one of my all-time favorite tricks, and this is what it looks like. So before we begin, we can have the spectator give the cards as many shuffles and cuts as they wish. I should mention this is a completely borrowed deck of cards, so this trick is entirely impromptu. So once the cards have been shuffled, I'll simply have the spectator reach in and pull out any card of their choice. Let's say it's this card over here, so hopefully they can see the card and remember it the best they can. So once the card has been remembered, we'll simply go ahead and lose it somewhere back into the center of the pack, just like this, get it lost in there, and we can also give it a further shuffle just to further lose that card into the deck. So the reason why this trick is one of my favorites is because me as the magician, I actually don't have to do any work at all. The cards themselves will do all the work for me. In other words, I can just sit back and enjoy this trick along with you because the cards will do everything for me, and this trick is entirely automatic. So essentially what will happen is I'm just gonna have you cut to any card, and any card in the middle, it truly doesn't matter, but wherever you cut to, hopefully this random card is gonna help us find your selection, okay? So remember, completely shuffled deck, so it truly doesn't matter how shallow or deep you cut, so truly free choice. Let's say you cut right about here. So I would ask the spectator, if you had to estimate roughly how many cards you just cut, what would you think that is? Maybe, I don't know, like 27, maybe 26 or so, not exactly sure. But as you can see right here, the 7 of clubs is the card that you just randomly cut to. So since you cut to a 7, we're gonna go ahead and count 7 cards and see what happens, okay? So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and here is the 7th card right here. I would ask the spectator what their card was, and hopefully that was their card, the 4 of spades. And that's the trick, completely impromptu trick, completely borrowed deck of cards. I love this trick so much, and if you guys want to learn how it's done, be sure to stick around for the tutorial. Alright guys, so here's the tutorial for the trick that you just saw. So this is one of my all-time favorite ways to perform a very classic force that involves you controlling a card to the 7th position from the top. The spectator truly does have a free choice to cut to any card in the deck. That's not a force. That 7 is a completely random choice by the spectator. However, this trick does revolve a lot on jazzing and improvisation because there are many different outcomes that could happen in this trick. And what you just saw in the performance was undoubtedly the best possible outcome. However, don't be discouraged when I say that because the other outcomes in this trick look nearly identical to that outcome. So don't be discouraged when I say that that was the best possible version and the other versions are lesser. That's not the case with this trick. Every other version of this trick looks just as good. I'll explain the basic principle of how this trick works, but then I'm essentially going to just run through a bunch of different examples to show you how I would go about improvising for these different scenarios. So this tutorial is going to be more or less a lesson on jazzing and improvisation, but I'll get into the basics of how the trick works here. So let's just go ahead and use a card to remember. For this tutorial's sake, we'll just go ahead and use the ace of spades since it's very simple to remember. So the spectator can choose any card. This is not a force, but let's just say they chose the ace of spades for this trick. What you're going to do is control this card to the 7th position from the top any way you'd like. The easiest way to do this, in my opinion, is by doing a bluff pass. So I count 3 cards and then 6 cards while the spectator is looking at their card, and then I'll simply hold a pinky break, and then I will essentially do a riffle force where I will have the spectator say stop at any point. And wherever they say stop, I'm just going to lower my hand down, release my thumb, and pick up 6 cards and say, okay, go ahead and place your card right here. And what this will do is it will place their card directly in the 7th position. They will basically place their own card into the 7th position by themselves. So now the ace of spades is going to be the 7th card from the top. So at this point, you could do any type of false shuffle. You can just like in-jog a card, get a break on it, and then control the cards back up to the top. Just do any type of false shuffle to make it look like you're mixing up the deck. However, the ace of spades will remain the 7th card from the top, and that is where the card is when you get to this point of the trick, when you have the spectator cut to any card. And now the rest of the trick is all improvisation. So there's a couple of best case scenarios, and then there's a couple of worst case scenarios. Let's start with the best case scenarios because they will be the easiest ones to explain. So the best case scenarios are going to be the numbers that are between 5 and 10. So let's say the spectator cuts anywhere and they cut to a 5. You're going to say, okay, so let's go ahead and remove 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You deal 5 cards onto the table and say, and this is the card we landed on. And you're going to get a pinky break on the next card. And you say, look, one less would have been an 8, another one would have been a queen, but as you can see, the card you stopped on is exactly the ace of spades. And this, of course, is just a double lift. So that's what would happen if they chose a 5. If they choose a 6, this is actually one of the best case scenarios because you say, let's go ahead and remove 6 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And take a look at the card we stopped on, and it's going to be their card. So that would be a very, very easy outcome. If they chose 7, as you saw in the performance, obviously this is the best case scenario because their card is actually the 7th card. So now you can truly do like an any card to any number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7th card will be the ace of spades, their card. Now, if they cut to an 8, what you're going to do is count 8 cards, but you're not going to deal them one at a time. You're actually going to deal them off in pairs. So you're going to count 2, and then another 2 for 4, another 2 for 6, and then another 2 for 8. And what this will do, if you deal the cards off in pairs, the now top card is actually going to be the original 7th card. So the card is the 7th card down, you deal 2, 4, 6, 8. And then what I immediately do is show the next card and say, look, if it had been 9, it would have been different. 10 would have been different. And this is a very important thing that I do is I don't immediately flip over this card to reveal it. I first say, let me just double check my counting. And I start counting from the bottom here. I start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, great. And then as my finger is on this, I pick it up and say, so the 8th card is your card, and that will be their card. So now if the spectator cuts to a 9, what you can do is very similar, is instead of dealing off pairs, you're going to deal in 3s. So since you cut to a 9, let's count 9 cards. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you're going to deal it off in 3s, just like this. And then show the next card would have been different, next card would have been different, and say, okay, we're just going to double check my counting, start from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Keep my finger on this card and say, look, the 9th card will be your card, the ace of spades. If they cut to a 10, also very similar, you're going to say, okay, so let's go ahead and count 10 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you spread off 4 cards for the final one. What this will do is maintain that card on the top. But it's very important that you do this next part of showing the next 2 cards that were different because it's going to make them forget that you just counted in kind of a weird way. And then you're going to make them forget again by counting from the bottom to the top. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the 10th card is the ace of spades. And that would be that outcome right there. So those are the best case scenarios, are the numbers between 5 and 10. However, if you cut to an ace, 2, 3, 4, or a jack, queen, king, that's where things can get a little bit interesting. There's a very easy way to completely ignore the number of the card, and you're going to instead focus on another aspect of the card. You're going to completely ignore the value of the card, and instead you're going to look at the suit of their card. So let's say you cut to a king of clubs. You're just going to ignore the value and look at the suit and say, so since you cut to a club, we're going to now spell the word clubs. C-L-U-B-S. So since clubs is 5 letters, I know that I'll have to do a double lift in order to show the ace of spades. So that would be for clubs. If they chose hearts, then you're going to spell hearts, H-E-A-R-T-S. This is 6 letters, which means it will be the next card down. So you just spell hearts and then flip over the next card. Same thing goes for spades. If they do spades, that's also 6 letters, S-P-A-D-E-S. And then that would be the next card down. If they chose a diamond, you're actually going to spell the word diamond without the S. That's 7 letters exactly. So you spell D-I-A-M-O-N-D, and then the D will be their selection right over here. So that is what you would do if they choose a card that is not in your target value range. There is one more little aspect that you should know, is that you don't actually have to use the exact card on the bottom that they cut to, because you basically have 2 different options when they cut to a position. You can either use the card on the face of the packet or the card that is face down next to it. Basically what you will do is you will decide between these 2 which one is the better case scenario. Sometimes you'll have one bad and one good. Sometimes you'll have both good ones, and sometimes you'll have both bad ones. You should always give yourself the option to see if there is another possible outcome that could happen that will enhance the trick. For this exact scenario that I just did, I cut to a 3 here. Obviously, this is not going to be an ideal outcome because it's not one of my target values. So what I'm going to do is, if I see that the card on the face of their packet is a bad case scenario, I'm going to ask them to estimate roughly how many cards they've cut, and they can say whatever they'd like at this point. This is all just presentation. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over the next card, which is face down, and I'm just going to basically see if this card is any better than the previous card. And if this card is better, which in this case it totally is, a 10 is going to be much better, then I'm actually going to pretend like this is the card that they cut to and completely ignore that the 3 is on the bottom here. And I'm going to say, so as you can see, this is the card that you cut to, the 10 of hearts, and now I would proceed with the rest of the trick. And then let's say, for example, both of the outcomes are bad. So let's say they cut here, I ask them to estimate, and then I flip over the next card and I see that it's also a bad case scenario. In this case, I would actually choose the 3 of spades because the spades has 6 letters, whereas the clubs has 5. So I would choose the spades in this case, but it truly doesn't matter which card you choose, just go for the better outcome. So now I'm gonna run through a couple of examples just to show you how this trick would look in different case scenarios. So let's go ahead and give the deck a little bit of a mix, but I will maintain that ace of spades in the 7th position so that we can keep that as our selection. So let's go ahead and start with our first example. So spectator, go ahead and cut anywhere into the deck. So let's say you cut right about here. So as you can see, you cut right about here. If you had to estimate roughly how many cards you cut, that'd be, I don't know, maybe 19. But as you can see, the 6 right here is the card you cut to. If I see that the card on the face of their packet is a best case scenario, I don't even have to look at the next card. So this is a 6, which is like the second best outcome. So now I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that is going to be their card right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and do another example. So let's say they cut anywhere. Let's say right about here. And we cut here. So if you had to estimate roughly how many cards this is, you'd say maybe like 27 or so, I don't know. But as you can see, you cut to the ace of diamonds right over here. So since you cut to a diamond, we're gonna spell diamond, D-I-A-M-O-N-D. Since you cut to a diamond, it led us directly to your card. So that's another example right there. Let's go ahead and do a third one. So let's have the spectator cut anywhere. Let's say right about here. So this is a 7. This would be the perfect outcome. Count 7 and it's there. Let's cut again. Let's say right about here. So I asked them to estimate roughly how many cards they cut to. This is like 27 or so. But as you can see, you cut right here to a 6, and now we do 6, and it's the perfect outcome. All right, let's have them cut the deck again. Let's say right about here. So here we have a 9. As you can see here, this is the card you cut to. So let's go ahead and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. As you can see, 10 would have been a 5, 11 would have been different, but this is the card you cut to, a 9. Let's just double check my counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the 9th card is the ace of spades. Okay, let's do one final example. So let's say they cut anywhere. And as you can see, this is roughly, I don't know, maybe like 17 or so cards. As you can see, one card more would have been a jack of clubs, but let's go ahead and use the jack of spades. This is the card you cut to. So since you cut to a spade, we're actually going to spell the word spades. So S-P-A-D-E-S. And this is the card you've led us to, the ace of spades. So as you can see, there's so many different outcomes that can happen, but pretty much every single one of them look identical. As you can see, you're always going to be able to spell or count exactly to the 7th card down in the deck. It truly doesn't matter what card they cut to. You just have to practice every single outcome because there are a lot. But once you guys get it down, it's actually pretty simple to remember. And if you get lucky, you get lucky with this trick. Trust me, it'll happen more often than not that you hit a 6 or a 7. I promise you that. But yeah, this is easily one of my all-time favorite tricks. I love doing jazzing and improvisation with card magic. I think it's so enlightening and I think it's so useful and so important to practice, especially in a real life scenario, because you truly never know what could happen. You might just witness a miracle. So anyways, guys, I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and I hope you get a lot out of it. And if you enjoyed this trick, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more. But yeah, see you guys next time. Bye.